As I've said before, civics isn't just like memorizing the branches of government. It's learning how power works and how rights are protected. It's how decisions get made and what responsibilities come with living in a republic. I'm Matt Hasquin, a high school history, government, and civics teacher at a small rural public high school in south central Illinois, and I've been talking about civics questions that are worth asking. And it's kind of a refresher for some, and it may be completely new to others, but on this episode, I want to talk about what does limited government actually limit. One of the conditions of an American-style democracy and our form of government is usually represented best by representative government, ordered government, and limited government. And the phrase limited government does get used quite a bit. And some people use it to mean small government, especially those who are of a conservative political mindset. And sometimes they use it to mean things like, fewer taxes or fewer regulations. But in a constitutional sense, limited government means something that's a little bit deeper than just the size of government. Because limited government means that the government has boundaries. You need to put it in its lanes. And I talked about the separation of powers in a previous video. It also means that government can only do what the law allows it to do. It means public officials do not have unlimited authority just because they happen to hold office. And it means that there are certain things government is not allowed to do, even if the majority supports it. And that last part's really important, because limited government is not about just limiting politicians we disagree with. It's also about limiting the government when our side wins. In the American system, no president or Congress or court or governor or mayor or school board or even a local official is supposed to have unlimited power because their authority comes from the law. Their power is divided by institutions through that separation of powers. Their actions can be challenged. Their decisions can be reviewed. Their power is limited by rights, our rights, the rights of the people. And this is why the Constitution matters, because the Constitution does not just create government. It also restrains the government. It keeps it in its box. It gives Congress certain powers, but not all powers. It gives the president important authority, but not absolute authority. It gives the courts the power to interpret law, but not the power to simply rule by personal preference. And so it divides power between national government and the states. That's federalism. It protects individual rights through the Bill of Rights and then later amendments added to the Constitution. It creates a system where government is powerful enough to act, but not supposed to be powerful enough to do anything that it wants. So government cannot simply silence people because their views are unpopular or inconvenient. Limited government is why we have due process, why due process matters. Government cannot simply punish people without legal protection. Due process. We have the right to life, liberty, and our property under the due process of law. The government has to tell us why it's doing certain things. So limited government is why search and seizure protections matter, because government cannot simply invade private life without limits. Limited government is why equal protection matters. Government cannot simply treat people differently without constitutional justification. Limited government is why elections matter, because public officials hold temporary power. They hold it temporarily. They don't hold on to it permanently. But limited government does not mean no government. And that's a common misunderstanding. A limited government can still build roads and fund schools and collect taxes and provide for the courts. It can enforce laws, regulate behavior, defend the country, and protect public safety. The question is not whether government can act. The question is whether government is acting within lawful limits. And that's really the key here, because limited government is not the same thing as weak government. It is a government under rules, within its lane, within its box. If government tries to grow too large, too fast, take too much control, we have to remember limited government, that concept is a reminder that government is restrained by law. So It means that government must also justify its power. It is government that recognizes that there are rights it did not create, and therefore should not be able to casually destroy those rights. Now, of course, Americans have always argued about where those limits should be. How much power should the federal government have? How much of that power should be left over to the states? When does regulation protect people, and when does it go too far? When does public safety justify government action, and when does it threaten liberty? And those aren't really easy questions, but they are exactly the kinds of questions that citizens in a republic have to be prepared to understand, because every argument about government, especially governmental power, eventually becomes an argument about limits. So, what does limited government actually limit? It limits the power of officials. It limits the reach of law. It limits what majorities can do to individuals. It limits what one branch can do to the other branches. It limits what government can do without accountability. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that in a free society, government is not supposed to be the master of the people. It is supposed to be the servant of the people, the consent of the governed. The government is supposed to be bound by law and limited by the rights of the people. And so the real civic question is not whether government should have power. Government has to have power in order to function. The real question is whether that power has boundaries. And that is what limited government actually limits. And that is another civics question that was worth asking. So, if you stayed to the end, the too long, didn't watch, extra credit answer you need to put down for, this brief summary. Limited government does not simply mean small government. It means government power has boundaries, and officials can only act within the law, and even majorities are limited by rights and due process and the structure of the Constitution, and ultimately accountability. Thanks for hanging around here to the end, and this one was a little bit longer, but I think it addressed some pretty important stuff today. Thanks for watching.